So I'm Kevin from Matilda Health. I'm a physiotherapist by trade. I did a PhD in low back pain a couple of years ago. And I suppose I've worked in a number of different areas across both private practice and working clinically, which I still do. I do some research and teaching at Curtin University as a session academic. And then I've always had an interest in technology, which has sort of led into this foray into founding companies and working in startups and working in innovation as well. It's an area that I think we can scale our impact and help reach more people and help make healthcare more effective and equitable. Yeah, so Matilda Health is a digital health company that we started in 2022. It's just been over 2 years now. We started it off the back of identifying an unmet clinical need for people with endometriosis. So we did a digital health accelerator, Perth by Design. We ended up winning that, and then started the company off the back of that. It depends how you define success. Has it been successful? I think certainly we've been able to reach people in 28 different countries. We've got thousands of users across the world, a lot of positive reviews, the odd negative reviews as well, of course. We've raised capital from international investors and been successful with grants. But my metric of success is how much of an impact are we having? And we're not at a stage where I can confidently say that we've been really successful with that yet. But that's what drives us for further continued growth and working in iteration and building a product that really has a big impact on people's lives. And once we're sustainably doing that, helping people, and it's helping more people, then I'd probably be happy to say that we've been successful. So just over a year ago, we were successful in receiving the White Rising Star Award at the Pitchfest at the APA Ignite conference in Brisbane. And it's been good just to receive that validation, I think. We get a lot of referrals from health professionals. We get a lot of validation from health professionals, particularly pelvic health physios and gynecologists. And receiving that was useful in helping, I suppose, reach more and get some more recognition in that space. And again, it's just been useful to, when you're building a startup, you're running on the smell of an oily rag. So having that bit of prize money was supporting its further development and some of the processes that we're going through. We have taken some would call it a pivot. I'm not quite sure if it's big enough to be classified a pivot. But we've really doubled down. This was kind of something on our roadmap anyway, was helping support people with endometriosis before and after their surgery. Surgery is a big part of people with endometriosis's journey. It's both diagnostic and treatment. And it's a really, I suppose, produces a lot of anxiety in the lead up to surgery, not sure what to expect. It's often their first surgery. What if I do get diagnosed? What if I don't get diagnosed? How do I best prepare? And it's a problem that people with endometriosis or suspected endometriosis obviously face, but it also challenges the gynecologists that treat them and the health team that treat them. In an ideal world, the gynecologists would send them to a variety of different allied health specialists, physios, dietitians, naturopaths, psychologists, but A, there's not those types of clinicians around that have readily available appointments within that person's location, and B, it's really expensive as well, and they're already paying for a service. So we've developed a pre and post-surgery optimization program for people to try and produce all that care in the one spot, to help support the person with endometriosis be well equipped and understand what they've got getting themselves into, what they've got coming up, but also help support the gynecologist so they can focus on doing their craft, which is obviously the surgery, and not having to look after things as much. So we're definitely still working on that. We launched that on the App Store 2 weeks ago, and that was the same day we found out about some really positive news, which I can't share yet publicly. Yeah, it's a successful pivot, if you want to call it that. Number one would be, do you really want to do this? First of all, we know that about 90% to 95% of companies won't exist 3 years later. So chances are you're going to fail. And if you have to be going with open eyes, and I shared in my talk earlier today that I think startups are glorified or can be glorified. Number two tip is, assuming that you have decided that you really want to do this, is speak to customers. What I mean by that is try to reduce that iteration feedback loop to as short as amount of time as possible, so that you can get a product in market, even if it's not a very nice polished version. Don't wait too long. You should be embarrassed by the first version you release, and then try and get feedback quickly to solve that person's problem, particularly if they're the customer. So the third tip is try to understand that funding environment. Matters slightly less if you're not a commercial business or not-for-profit or a social enterprise, but even then you've got to keep the lights on. But understanding who pays and what their motivation for paying is something that I think is super, super important. And at the end of the day, that's probably going to be your lifeline or not. So my top tips for people considering to enter the next round of Pitchfest would be try to create a story or a narrative around your product or your thing that you're pitching, and use emotion as part of that. And what I mean by that is people they get the problem when it's through the lens of a lived experience, and we have co-design and lived experience kind of embedded throughout Matilda Health. And patient stories really help to sort of settle that, make people embody and understand what you're trying to do. So I really think try to connect people from a story perspective. And then I think there's lots of great resources online around what makes a good pitch, but try to practice it and get feedback from people that are really not in your field, and iterate based off that as well. Getting feedback and modifying and practicing further forward as well. We've received a lot of help from Matilda across our journey, and we are very grateful for that. It's something that we don't take for granted. We received this help through a variety of different places. We initially were born out of the Perth by Design for Digital Health program, which we won. That's a Australia-wide program that's funded by the government and universities, and there's a number of mentors on that are still on our advisory board today. These sort of accelerators can be really good places to meet people. Not only do you get to learn good content, which is incredibly invaluable if you're doing it for the first time, but you meet those mentors and those people. And I think you've got to be comfortable speaking to lots of different people about how to solve problems that as a clinical physiotherapist you've never come across before. And that open conversation and that vulnerability to share those challenges and problems that you're facing, I think breed connection with the person you're speaking to, and then they are often, we've had lots of kind of introductions through that process. Oh, you should meet this person, or if you're having trouble with this, let me introduce you to someone like that. So start that network at those sort of accelerators. Even like startup events have been really useful as well. There's kind of tech product ones, there's more sort of clinical ones as well. Share vulnerabilities in that journey as well. I think we often sugarcoat our lives, and our lives on social media are often quite different to what's happening in real life. But if people don't know what's going on behind the doors, then it's hard to actually provide that help and support. And I think it makes you human and makes you much more easily, people want to help you.